It's really cool to think that we can rewire our brains. Even if we weren't taught how to feel capable as a child, we can do that for ourselves now. Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast today. This is our second part in a 3-part series on reparenting ourselves, giving ourselves what we needed in childhood that maybe we didn't get. Also, these series are for people who are maybe just parents trying to do a better job for their kids than they feel like was done for them. So last week we covered how to find perfection in ourselves, just like a healthy parent would find for us. And this belief of being perfect really does help form who we are, gives us the confidence that we need to safely step out into a world and be and do all the things that we want to be and do. So if you missed out on that episode, I really encourage you to go back and check that out. This week, we are moving on to the second part of this series, and we are going to talk about what I think is a really underrated belief. And that is the belief that you are capable. Now, this might seem super basic. Okay, great. Yeah, feeling capable. Sounds like a good idea. But today, I really want you to take time to see if you can wrap your brain around how really big this concept is, this belief is that someone is capable. It truly brings magic to someone because it opens any door. If you believe that you are capable of anything, you can go and do anything in this world. Feeling capable means that you know you can navigate whatever life throws at you. If you don't feel capable, you usually are someone that's not going to take risks. You don't try new things. And then in turn, a lot of times your decisions are based out of fear, which we all know is not a great place to be. But when you do feel capable, you actually feel like you're safe to explore and try new things because you know whatever situation you end up in, you can figure it out. And those are the experiences, those ones that feel kind of scary at first, when you go into them, you end up usually growing from them. So, this foundation of feeling capable also allows you to go out and try things that maybe you at first thought were a little scary. And that's a huge part of growing, right? This is one belief that we all hope we would instill in every child that they are capable. And maybe you're a parent and you're listening today and you're trying to raise kids that feel capable. Or maybe you're an adult looking back and feeling like your parents may have let you down in this area. Well, this podcast is going to cover both ends of that spectrum. Now, personally, like many kids of the 80s and 90s, I was a bit of a latchkey kid. So there was a fair amount of independence. And there was a period in my life when I looked back at that and I thought, man, that was kind of awful. Because I think being brought up where you have so much independence, although it can be very good, you also are allowing the world to teach you a lot, right? And there's a lot of things that can happen that are just not pleasant to experience when the world is teaching you. But now, as I'm older, I really am able to see a lot more of what that experience gave me. And I do think that although there's probably a continuum, right? Like there's some parenting that's very, free range, letting your kids do whatever you want. You're probably going to learn a fair amount of capability there because your parents are allowing you to go and explore, and all you're left to do is to feel like, well, I got to figure this out somehow. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, which are like the helicopter parents that really hover over all the experiences. And maybe in some ways, some of those beliefs of feeling capable don't necessarily blossom in those environments. I do think there's a way that can happen there too. So it's probably, a belief that you can instill in your child regardless of how you parent. But I think going into parenting with that mindset that you want your child to feel capable is super important. Now, part of that unfortunately comes out of discomfort. But it's this very delicate balance of allowing your child to feel a certain amount of discomfort and then realize, okay, I can do something about this. So actually arming your kids with the ability to, find resources if they need it, know how to solve for problems, and know that they're capable of seeking out whatever they need to work through that scenario is super important. And I think that is what I want you to understand today, is that feeling capable isn't that you're intrinsically just someone who's very talented and you can do anything. Feeling capable is more than just a talent thing, or you were born with the ability to do certain things, or you were even trained to do certain things. It's more about problem solving. It's more about, if I don't know how to do it, I can find someone who can help me. And I think that's really, really key as well. And this can look a variety of ways. Maybe this will come as a surprise. This is one way that my mom really instilled in me that belief that I am capable, is she put me in counseling at a very young age. Now, that may seem like a weird correlation for you, and I'm not even necessarily saying that everyone should put their kids in counseling. But for me, that experience allowed me to see that there were resources outside of my parent that I could access to help me navigate a challenging time. And again, this can look so many different ways. Maybe you are putting your kids in activities where they're having healthy relationships with other adults that they can ask questions to. Maybe you are doing a carpool with your neighbor, and your neighbor is able to develop a mentoring relationship with your child so that they know if they're struggling and maybe they don't feel comfortable talking to you, maybe they'll feel comfortable talking to your neighbor. This can look so many different ways, but the idea here is that as parents, we are instilling in our kids that this world is plentiful of resources to help them, that we don't always have all the answers, and sometimes we too reach outside of ourselves to help us be better parents for our kids. So I think some of the things that you're probably already doing as a parent, you don't even realize that you are instilling in your child that this world is a safe place to explore, that there are resources to help them when they experience trouble, and that they are capable of navigating it all. Now, I do want to tell you kind of an interesting story, because I think if you are a parent listening, there are a lot of times we second guess our parenting and think that we're screwing everything up. And that's a very natural experience to have. But I kind of want to give you a mind boggling story here, because I think maybe it'll help you take a step back from your own experience, maybe be a little bit less critical. Now, I think I was in early high school. My much cooler older cousin was traveling with this program called People to People Student Ambassadors. I don't know if it still exists, but it's basically a guided group where you take teenagers over to other cultures to foster understanding of those cultures. She recommended me for this program. I was able to travel over to Europe for a couple weeks. We went to places like France, Italy, Switzerland, Germany. We even got to stay with a family in Austria for a while. But there were so many experiences on that trip that I really had to just strengthen my muscle of believing I was capable. When I first landed, I had never flown that many hours, I don't think, until that point, and I was just sick as a dog. I was throwing up in a porta potty in front of Notre Dame. Like, this was not a good start to the trip, but we got through that. I was feeling a little bit better. We were doing a little bit of a tour in downtown Paris, and I got lost. I got separated from my group. And if you've ever been to Paris, most people can speak English, but they're not usually a huge fan of doing that with Americans necessarily. So I had a lot of trouble finding someone who was willing to help me find my way back to my group, but I did eventually find my way back to my group, thankfully. There were just so many things that popped up that truly, I think if my mom had known all of the details, she probably would have been terrified. But, she had the trust in this group that they would take care of me, and really that I would learn a lot on the trip, which I did. And, a lot of you have heard previous episodes on this podcast where I've talked about my experience living overseas in college as well, where I lived in Spain, and there were a lot of things I had to navigate there. That was back in the day where it was very expensive to call overseas, and so I wasn't always able to call home if I needed help, and I really had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And I just look back at those experiences with so much appreciation. And it's funny because recently I had a conversation with my mom about her parenting regrets and things that she wished she had done differently. And, here I'm thinking she's going to regret leaving me home alone every day after school and the trouble I got into and maybe some of the struggles that I had, in school or any of those things, right? But she tells me she regrets letting me go overseas and travel by like that, in high school and college by myself. And my jaw dropped to the floor. I could not understand this, but she said she felt like she had let me down by giving me that freedom and that maybe she had made a mistake, that maybe that was really too dangerous to expose me to those things at that age. But I can tell you that there were way worse things that happened. In those days, I was left to my own devices after school, and my mom was working late, and I'm just roaming around getting into trouble. Versus being overseas, I mean, I did have some, like I said, I had some kind of crazy experiences, but they were way more impactful in terms of the good growth and development that I've had in my life. And I share this with you only because I think it's so interesting. As parents, our perspective is often very skewed from what our child experiences. And that can be good and bad. Now, for my mom, she regrets things that I think were the best part of my growing up years, right? But she doesn't even think twice about certain things that maybe I wish looked a little bit different. So if you are a parent today listening, and you're like, oh, I don't really know what the safe amount of independence is for my kid. I don't want to regret looking back and something horrible happened. Don't judge yourselves too harshly, okay? Because truly, when your child grows up, I guarantee you their perception of how they grew up is going to be completely different than how you think you provided for them. And all you can do is make the best decisions you can to give them controlled and intentional freedom that really allows them to feel empowered and able to make decisions and to navigate obstacles. And my mom did that for me, but she didn't think she was doing right at the time, and that's okay to feel that way sometimes. So, that one's for you parents. But if you are someone who you're listening to this podcast and you're looking back at your own childhood and thinking, I wish someone would have done better for me. Now, that could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe you felt like your parents were too overbearing and didn't let you explore the world. Or maybe you're someone who you didn't feel like you were armed with the resources that you needed and you were just left to fend for yourself and didn't really know what to do and bad things happened. Both of those situations are really challenging to manage as an adult. But the hope is not lost. There are things that you can do. And what I always tell people is when you are trying to form a new belief, say this belief that you are capable, you can do two different things. You can both go backwards and reflect on past to find evidence that you are capable. Or you can look forward and work on creating evidence that you are capable. And those are the two directions I want to talk about with you today. So, when we are trying to develop new beliefs, we are starting with creating just a thought of something maybe new that correlates to that new belief. So, the thought that you are capable. And maybe we didn't have those thoughts at the time, but now where you're at, you can look back and have a different thought. So look back at some of the experiences that you have had in your life. Start from when you were really, really young. Are there things that you encountered that really were challenging, but that you got through? Think about those for a second. Do any of those give you a thought that, wow, I was really capable? I was capable of getting through that. I guarantee you, you will find a few. And truly, write these down. If you're a person who's got a notebook nearby, or maybe you can open up your phone and put it in your notes app, make notes about some of these experiences that you've had in your past where you look back and you are impressed with yourself, that you look back and you're like, wow, I was really capable. Okay? Now, a thought is something that can come and go. But a belief is something that is very embedded in who we are in our identity. When we talk about having a new belief, that comes out of having a thought repetitively enough that it gets embedded in our brains and it forms a new belief. So, this belief that we are capable, we can develop a corresponding thought by looking back at previous experiences. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, another thing we can do, like I said, is we can look forward and we can create evidence. And for those, really what you want to do is you want to create experiences for yourself that will induce the thought that you are capable. Now, usually this is going to be something that seems a little scary or challenging at the time, but you're willing to give it a whirl. And to be honest, really, however you get through that experience, it should enforce this thought that you are capable because you got through it. Now, all the better if you get through it well, right? And there's a positive outcome, but just navigating challenging experiences can give us that thought that we are capable as well. But really, just think about something. Maybe there's something you've wanted to try, but you've just been so scared. Are there resources that you can tap into now to help arm yourself for that experience? So that when you go into it, you are really feeling like you are capable going into it. All of those things will help to reinforce this thought that we are capable. And what we need is we need repetition on both of those ends. We need repetition of the thoughts and reflections of our past experiences where we saw ourselves as being capable, and we need to keep creating experiences where we are looking for that evidence that we are capable. Now, when you take those two together, it's so impactful for making that a belief, the belief that you are capable. And that is such a good feeling. Feeling capable makes you feel confident, it makes you feel assured, it makes you feel like you can do anything. It's really cool to think that we can rewire our brains. Even if we weren't taught how to feel capable as a child, we can do that for ourselves now. And I'll say one thing too, when I'm talking about looking at past events, these don't have to be big events and they don't have to be far in the past. You can even think about maybe you're looking at yesterday. What challenging things did I have to navigate yesterday that I figured out? Now, let me give you an everyday example. Maybe yesterday you had an insurance question and you were able to actually find the number that you needed to call for your insurance, and then you navigated those automated responses enough that you actually got a human on the phone. I don't know about you, but I feel like I win a victory every time I actually do that. But that's being capable, right? You were capable of finding the number. You were capable of navigating those answers so you could get to a human and ask the question that you needed an answer to. And those are things that make you capable. So don't overcomplicate this. Don't make this like you're climbing a mountain. These can be everyday things. And these are exercises for your brain to reinforce the belief that you are capable, because you are. Regardless of who you are capable. But unfortunately, sometimes our brains do funky things and they get on a path that's just not true to what our experiences are. But we can rewire that. And hopefully today you've got some more tools in your tool belt to help do that for you. So whether you are a parent listening today trying to be a better parent for your kid, give them a better childhood than maybe you had, or maybe you're someone that's really trying to change the programming that you received as a child. I hope you got something today to really help you to feel empowered. And I hope that you join us next week. We are going to have one more part of this reparenting series, and I'm really excited about it. Have a great week, guys. I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.